Welcome to the Pinelander Podcast, the official podcast of Pineland, broadcasting to you from an undisclosed location deep inside Pineland, where we discuss faith, family, finances, firearms, freedom, food, and everything else in between, with those who believe in living free and living out the values that made this country free. All right, welcome to the Pinelander Podcast. My name is Paul, and this is the Pinelander. I'm here with my ranger buddy, Mike Blackburn, and we're in an undisclosed location. I love that intro. You know, it just makes you want to go just shoot some Taliban or, you know, whoever our enemies are this of late.
Yeah, there's plenty of them out there, isn't there?
But, you know, it's great that we get back. For this next episode, we're kind of having a mini series within our podcast series. And this one is, we're just kind of slowing things down and looking at the 5 warrior virtues. And last time we had a great conversation on kind of introductory matters, and we looked at honor. And I think, you know, that's a topic that's, you know, we could talk on for days on end.
Yeah. Well, we were
kind of building on the foundation of that.
Yeah, I just wanted to start off with an article that I recently saw, and it really made me think. And the article was in the straitstimes.com, and it's basically you know, world news, and this one particularly in Europe. But I see where Denmark has called for mandatory military service for women. Now, I mean, listen, I had a 20-year career, so did Paul, and we both are more than, you know, used to seeing women in uniform. I mean, there's no issues there. Yeah. But I think I've always looked at it
at a draft.
Well, and that's kind of, you know, conscription. I mean, this is kind of like a whole different level, and I'm not sure what the situation is in Denmark. But my guess is it's probably not too much different than probably what you see throughout Western civilization. And I was just thinking, when I'm driving around and just doing my day-to-day activities, I've noticed that there's a lot more women in what were traditionally male sort of career paths, okay? And we see that kind of across the board, so it's not like even just, you know, the big, strong, heavy lifting requirement type things. We're talking about even in the universities, there's generally a higher percentage of women that are in the universities. Some of the traditional jobs like carpentry, plumbing, welding, carpentry, a lot of these tasks, these jobs out there, we're seeing. I think you brought this up last episode, or I remember you talking about it, where, you know, for every I think 5 people leaving these type of professions, there's only like 1 or 2 maybe coming in and filling the back seat there. So
5 go, 2 come in.
Yeah, so you know, we're seeing this across the board, and I think that is why we're seeing a lot of these women that are having to try to fill the vacuum, if you will, that's been created, and I think that's why this book was written. I think we've recognized the fact that masculinity has been under assault. This is why people like Jordan Peterson are so popular. People are flocking to anything at all that these young boys, these young men can get their hands on that isn't attacking masculinity. And I've always seen that. I've always seen to where, and I think Denmark's in the same position, and I'm sure the United States is probably not far behind it. We're having our own recruiting and retention issues. It's not unreasonable to suggest that we may see the same thing here, where females are also at age 18 required to enter in selective service.
Yeah. I think that's that's a failure in a lot of levels. I mean, it's a bad thing for men to come back in body bags, but not your daughter, not your mother, not your sister. I mean, yeah, war is hell, war is evil, but we don't want to be throwing our women into the sausage grinder. I think it's failure. Yeah, I think the failure is men not being, feeling responsible, not stepping up to the plate. Yeah, absolutely right. That was Mike Rowe was talking about that. Is there's like 7 million able-bodied men, young men, just sitting on their duffs, watching TV, on the internet instead of, getting out in the workplace, getting at it. And this is one of the things that motivated me to write this book, for us to write this book, Mike, is we need able-bodied men of good character, of excellent character, that will make citizen warriors. And even if you're not called to be a warrior, to be able-bodied man of character and a citizen, be somebody that can be a productive member of society, somebody that can be a responsible adult. Yeah, I think it's irresponsible to draft your women folk. I think that's a failure. It's so strange in Denmark. That was the nation that, led the way, hacking up monks, and then, 1,000 years later, whoa, now we're so woke or whatever, so broke.
Yeah, I mean,
the men folk are so weak.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, Denmark does have a long history of, exceptional warrior class. No doubt the Danes are pretty well known.
Yeah, that was an old expression of the English monks. Lord, save us from the fury of the Danes, of the Northmen. And now it's like, they need to draft their women.
Yeah, no more Northmen. Now it's the North women.
Yeah, it's
we're
crazy.
Supposed to fear.
And we say this not from a chauvinistic standpoint, but from a point of men are abdicating.
Yes.
When I see that, I see the abdication of a man.
I do too.
En masse. It's like, I don't need to.
No, I don't. Listen, my hat's off to the ladies that are stepping up because, here, this might be unpopular, but I really don't care. Men and women are different.
No way.
Really? I hate to break that. To people.
But newsflash there.
But here's the thing, man. It is they are designed to work together.
Something that Don Lemon would never say.
No, he wouldn't. Okay, but any married man, okay, knows that there are things that we do and there are things that she does, and I stay out of her lane because I don't do it very well, and she expects me to be in my lane and doing my thing. And
every man with a brain knows.
And we work in complete harmony, and me by myself, not too, it's not too pretty. Okay, anybody that's been to a bachelor's apartment probably knows that. But together, we're able to achieve pretty much anything that gets thrown our way. Okay, if I don't have the answer, she does, and if there's some task that she's better than I'm at, she does it. Okay, we rely on one another to get through life, and this is what you're absolutely correct. What I see happening is the guy is not taking out the trash. Okay. And she has to say, well, I can't rely on that freaking turd. I'll take it out myself. And this is exactly what's happening. And you can plug in whatever you want to plug in, but the traditional male tasks that we are designed to achieve, okay, or do because it's just easier because of the way we are, because we're men, we're not doing. And what do you expect her to do? I mean, if a thug comes out and jumps out from the shadows, okay, and you're not going to defend her, she can run or she can defend herself, and more she's trying to defend herself because we ain't doing it, and I think it's just sad.
Yeah.
And so this book is timely.
Very sad.
Look at people like Andrew Tate. Now, he's got his own issues right now with the legal system there in, I believe it's Romania. But listen, he is hugely popular for a reason. He's usually like the number one, topic on search engines and everything else. I mean, everybody is starving. These young men are starving for whatever it is that Andrew Tate is offering. And to me, I've listened to some of his stuff on YouTube or whatever, but it's really just, hey, step up and be a man.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it is like, I think, I'm not sure if he's, what his religious preferences are. We probably don't agree on a lot of things in matters of faith or religion, or maybe even a ton of stuff. But his basic message on men fulfilling their obligations and responsibilities in life is dead on and resonating with a lot of young males.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope this this little series that we're doing on the 5 warrior virtues is going to resonate with the guys out there. I think it does. I think most guys that listen to us are fed up with the woke culture, with the way things are going, with the way the things are headed. And, something else that's that I've noticed is we often see things in Europe and then we'll later see it here.
This is true. Yeah.
Normally it's like Britain or something like that. We'll see like some kind of something some goings on with, laws or whatever. And then we'll think, hey, that's a really great idea. And then we start implementing it here. May that never happen. I think it's a sad day. But yeah, all of this really, that's what we wanted to capture in the book. And, one of the things was looking at warrior codes. We talked about that last week. So we kind of scoured. I was able to kind of look at old warrior codes and then how these warrior codes kind of defined, was created by warriors. So the whole thing is warriors are the ones who decided what's right, what's wrong, what's indifferent. And to restrain, unwanted behaviors, set boundaries, and also distinguish what's honorable from what's shameful. And I think it's really important to have, and we have a warrior code. We kind of have like an unwritten warrior code in the States, but really all those codes really come back from, Europe, come from the old country, from Asia, whatever culture,
we brought our DNA with us, right? I mean,
absolutely. That's something we looked at in what I wanted to do is build on where we were last time. We looked at honor, and just to kind of recap, we're looking at honor, integrity, loyalty, temperance, and courage, and that's our book that's coming out. The 5 Warrior Virtues should come out in another few weeks or so, and this is really this is foundational. Now, why 5 and not 10? Because if you look at all the warrior codes, the ones that we looked at, we really found that these 5 are from every warrior code, every nation, every age. And these 5 at least were constant. There may be some other ones from different traditions, but these 5 really were constant. And so we look at honor as the foundational virtue. Virtue is a praiseworthy excellence. It's excellence. And so these 5 warrior virtues are praiseworthy excellences. These are character traits. These are aspects of being a warrior that we want. That warriors have said, "Hey, we want that. We want to serve with a guy that has X, Y, Z." And who doesn't want to serve with somebody who has honor?
Well, I think 5 really worked out pretty nice for a couple of reasons. The other thing is, one of the things that you do in the book is that you bring out a lot of the virtues from various different cultures and time periods. And, you might have 9, you might have 7, you might have whatever. But when I was looking over them, I think you've packaged them very well, because a lot of the various different places.
You're not just saying that, though.
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, because they may have, and the reason why I'm saying that, they may have 1 or 2 or 3 that can all kind of get packaged into one thing.
That's true.
And what they did was they just kind of, spread that out a little bit, and kind of just went into a little more detail.
Maybe nuanced 1 or 2.
A few of them. Yeah. So I think, obviously for me, 5 is better. I can remember 5.
Exactly. And these are distinct.
They are distinct.
Yeah.
And so you can take one of these and you can nuance them out if you want into a lot of different virtues that you'll see other places. But I think you're right. I think if you had to just wrap it all up into 5, okay, or the smallest package that you could provide, I think you got the number right. So I was kind of happy the way you did that and how you did that.
Yeah, and
I mean, even just like
appreciate
just like leadership, LDRS. I mean, if you just look at something that we're familiar with in the military, I mean, pretty much everything's wrapped up in there as well. I mean,
I believe you too, because if you didn't agree, you would say so.
Yeah, I got no.
Because you're a man of integrity.
No, I say things all the time that you don't like.
So something I didn't talk about last time is if you can imagine this in your mind's eye, a temple, right? So this is a diagram that's in the book. So you have a temple with 5 columns. So it's got a foundation. You get the 5 columns, and you got the roof. Mm-hmm. And so the idea is the foundation that we didn't talk about is duty to the country, duty to the United States. So it's the sense of service, because some people might say, why didn't you have selfless service as part of a virtue? And I think that's foundational. Just right. Serving as a warrior it's meant to be. Now that you can further quantify or qualify duty. It's not just because you had to, you're drafted, or this is the idea is that's who we are. That's what warriors do. Warriors are the ones who run to the sound of the guns. Right. They're the ones who feel the need to defend kindred, kind, family, and not have women drafted. I mean, that's right. Failure.
That is failure.
Yeah.
It's not to the women, but to the man that stayed home and sent his woman in his place.
Exactly. That's very sad. And so you have duty to country as the foundation, and you have these 5 pillars, honor, integrity, loyalty, temperance, and courage. And at the very roof, we're taking this argument from Vegetius. We mentioned him last time. He was a Roman author in the 4th century. He was writing at a time when Rome was deteriorating.
Okay, here's what scares me.
Yeah.
Before you get off of him.
Yeah.
Man, that sounds so relevant today.
Yeah.
And
because it is. Well, because we're it's like before Rome falls.
Okay, so let me throw this out. Okay, nobody took heeded his warnings then.
True.
I just hope this time around. I mean,
yeah.
We don't take the same. It's just a shame. I mean, because you sit there, you read what he was writing and what he was concerned about, and it's just like, holy smoke. I mean,
and what's awesome about this is he was not writing to senators and politicians and businessmen. He was talking to young men and taking responsibility for the defense of their country. Yeah. And that's really all we're trying to do with this book too. And I think that is the prescription for success and to prevent a disaster is there's enough able-bodied young men who have excellent character, and they actually give a crap about their country surviving, and they do something about it. And that's really what he said. And he said, look, the warrior class really provides the safety, security, and survival of the state. So obviously, if you have a weak sauce military, you're not going to stick around very long. Especially if you have enemies that are powerful, and we have a lot of enemies in the world.
And it's not even. I mean, listen, it's a reason
we don't live in a Pollyanna.
No, but there's a reason, Paul, that it says foreign and domestic.
Yeah.
So the warrior class is more than just even foreign enemies. I mean, I'm more concerned, I guess, about the internal enemies.
True. So true. It pains me to see our country, our cities, on fire with thugs, that aren't worth a hair on the crack of your 4th point of contact. Yeah. But yeah, if you look at that foundation, I want to make sure that everybody heard that is, that's really the foundation of everything. It's the duty, and we have 5 pillars. And then moving on from there to get into integrity. Yeah. Integrity, I had a lot of fun with each one of these chapters, but integrity really, I think, resonated. I think was probably the most important chapter to me. And I'll just say, I started working out at Camp McCall in 1997. I was an instructor out there, small unit tactics, 3 years. Then I came back again after I retired in 2010. And I've been out there ever since. And one thing I've learned I do the math in public, almost 15, 16 years of working out at McCall, and every aspect of that portion of the Q course is I've run into a lot of instructors, from every group, and they're from different parts of the country, and they're at different ages. But when I ask them, hey, what's the most important attribute? We look at Special Forces attributes, professional, responsibility, adaptability, capability, team player, integrity, capability, and endurance. They always said integrity.
Integrity.
I mean, like 99.9% of the time. And then a close second is like capability,
right,
or adaptability, stuff like that. But integrity, I think that says a lot. Almost 2 decades of instructors knowing that. These are guys that worked on teams. They've seen some crazy stuff. They've had some experiences downrange. Right. And they say, hey, this is super important. Not to mention how they grew up. But so integrity. Why integrity? Well, it's in the warrior codes. It's in Bushido. The Romans, the Greeks, even the Vikings, everybody.
Every single one.
Yeah, so integrity is important because for a warrior, not just for warriors, because you can look at the workplace, name it. Any place you work, integrity is really important. It's paramount.
Family.
Yeah, family. Marriage, friendship.
It comes to the heart. Yeah, it comes to the heart of
business.
Of trust.
Yeah, so it's a trust issue. And so when that is combined with being a warrior, sometimes people kind of miss out on that. And, the strange thing that I found when I was studying, reading a lot of books to write a book, is the Vikings also had integrity. These are guys that, would climb off a longboat and go hack up monks, but they also had integrity. Now, it's just a little bit different than maybe the kind we have, but still they had trust and integrity, and faithfulness to their kind, their family, all that stuff. And, they had a different idea about warfare. But
they had things, but that was acceptable for them.
Yeah.
And there were things that weren't acceptable. So they had their own code.
Yeah.
But integrity, regardless of code, you're absolutely right. It's do you mean what you say? Do you say what you mean? And it's a premium for warriors because we rely on factual information. We have to have that. We have to have the good, bad, and the ugly. We don't need the happy talk. If we're deficient at something, if there's something that we're not catching, happy talk gets you killed in our profession. We need to know really quick if something's not right, and someone's got to have the moral courage and the integrity to let us know so we can fix it. Does that sound about right?
No, absolutely. I would say. You look at I start off with the word level. So we look at definitions of each one of these virtues. So as I note, is the ancient Greeks didn't have a word actually for integrity. They had words that are like it, but not the same. My point is the word we have comes from the Latin, even though there was a word actually for integrity in the Greek. It's not the one we use. And in the Latin, it actually means intact. Integer. And I love how that is at the root. The etymology. I think I said that right.
Yeah.
Of the word is keeping yourself intact, keeping honor intact, keeping your conscience intact. That says so much, so that you are not, you're undivided. You're undivided in your trust, in your faithfulness. That is for warriors. It's crucial. And I would say, just at the 36,000 foot view, guys in SOF, guys in Rangers, guys in SF, guys in the SEALs, what have you, you're often put in situations that are very gray. It's very ambiguous. So you don't have a lot of parental guidance, if you will. You're out there, you can do basically whatever. And if you're lacking in integrity, there can be some really wacky stuff that you're just allowing to happen. So at the simplest level, integrity keeps your honor intact. It keeps your name intact. It keeps the honor and integrity of the unit and the nation in a state of being undivided. So it's kind of important. So I started off, I love philosophy. So I think philosophy is good because it helps us think on a deeper level, helps us systematize our thoughts. And, we all use philosophy. Even if we don't like the word philosophy, we do it. You have a philosophy of work, philosophy of business. And somebody I looked at in history is Marcus Aurelius. Now, most of us have heard of the Stoic emperor. So Marcus Aurelius, he was the emperor for 19 years in 161 to 180.
Made
AD.
famous by the movie with.
Yeah. And his take was he had basically the ability to do enough power and authority to do kind of whatever he wanted to do. He could have went off on a 19-year bender. He could have killed everybody. I mean, the guy could have been another Caligula, right? But his mindset, his philosophy led him to restrain himself, and it goes into self-control. But he looked at, his position was to provide stability for the nation, stability for Rome, and he had self-respect. He respected himself. He respected that position he had, and so he held integrity is really important. So the idea is this: you're the same guy out of your house that you are inside your house, and integrity means I'm the same guy inside that nobody can see that I'm outside, like my inside voice, right? I don't talk to myself, but you have this internal monologue where you're thinking, that's kind of messed up, and that equals what you're actually saying. So you don't have like some disparity between your internal
and what you're
monologue
deeds
saying,
and thoughts.
Don't do that, and then you're just doing something else. Yeah. So there's a problem. Well, Marcus Aurelius didn't have that problem. Now, he wasn't a perfect guy. Okay, I mean he did put Christians to death. A lot of people don't know that. He did. He used the power of the sword to do that. And he had some other issues. I mean, it's beyond the scope of this, but the whole point is he didn't use his position to kind of enhance his, to kind of live for, or just kind of get over on everybody else for himself. He was not a self-aggrandizement guy. And he lived with integrity, even with the ability of having all that power. So the idea is, the bookend of that is Epictetus, who was a Stoic, and he was a slave, and he was able to do the same things. And that's why that's the argument of Stoicism. If either you're a slave or an emperor, it's a philosophy that's practical. That's why a lot of warriors, it's like an unofficial warrior philosophy. And I approach that from a Christian standpoint, and for the idea of, I think Stoicism offers us behavioral maintenance strategies, and I think that's pretty legit, But, integrity, I mean, just think about, there's so many examples. I offer a few in the book, personally, some things that I was faced with where I could have taken the easy way. And I thought, no one would know. But then again, I would know. At the end of the day, I would know.
Sleep with yourself. Well, Dwight D. Eisenhower calls integrity a supreme quality of leadership.
No doubt. Yeah.
And so I think you brought
I like Ike.
Yeah, and I do too. I mean, he was obviously an impressive fellow. But what was there was a couple things that you mentioned. And no matter where you're at, you don't have to be in the Army, but in the office, on the football field, in a section gang, it doesn't matter. I mean, integrity is important. But one of the things I think is reliability, right? You talked about the fact that that what your deeds and actions match. So what you're thinking about is how, and this is who you are. I mean, people just know who you are because you're not putting on a show at work. they just know what to expect. They can almost like, well, hey, if I went and asked Paul this, what do you think his answer would be? And they probably could tell you. Because,
so. Yeah.
Right? Because they just know, well, this is the way he is. He's a guy of integrity, and this is how he thinks on things, and this is the way he's going to go down on it. And the reliability also that you're not going to take advantage of, like what you're talking about with Marcus Aurelius. You're not going to take advantage of your power.
Yeah.
You're going to restrain yourself. I love Stoicism as well. I think a lot of the values fit right in there, including temperance. Stoicism fits very well with temperance and all these values. So I think it is the warrior's philosophy for sure.
Yeah, and just on that note, with power, you have power, you have authority. Now, something that I've discovered over the last 10 years. So I'm privileged to also preach out in the woods to the small unit tactics community, and then they'll give me a half hour or something. And there's a go-to, every preacher has about 10 good sermons in his back pocket. So I got one good sermon I use out there. And it's really made, I think, for soldiers. And really it's out of Luke chapter 3. And it's an occasion where John the Baptist is baptizing people, in preparation for the coming of the Messiah. And then there's soldiers that are saying, hey, what do we do? Are we outside is our vocation compatible with...
Do we have any hope?
Yeah, is there any hope for us? But anyway, what he tells them, he says, don't intimidate anyone. Don't, he's saying, let me get the scripture here. Let me look it up here. You shouldn't do this off the cuff here. But yeah, don't intimidate anyone. Don't be content with your wages. There's another part I'm missing here. But the whole point he's telling is don't misuse the power of the sword. Right. And you have that power. That's where the integrity comes in. I've seen a lot of soldiers that have misused the authority they have, misused the power they have. And that's for dishonest gain and, downrange. They've done X, Y, Z because they can and because they have a character deficiency. And it's sad to see. And the people that have a gun in their face, all they can do is comply. And, that's why I think another reason that integrity is so important for soldiers is you have a lot of weapons at your disposal. A lot of bad things can happen if you don't have integrity. He says, there you go. 3:14. Do not intimidate anyone or accuse falsely, and be content with your wages. That's Luke 3:14. It just says a lot, about you have an arsenal at your disposal. You've got capability of dropping ordnance. You've got these belt-fed machine guns. You can send somebody to Camp X-Ray if you want to puck this person and you feel, I don't know if there's Camp X-Ray still in operation, but I'm dating myself. But there's going to be other Camp X-Rays. But the idea is if...
There's always a camp.
Yeah. But the idea is if, you're lying, that's part of integrity, obviously, and you're not using the power correctly, some bad stuff can happen.
So here's a few things here that I'm looking at as far as assessing your level of integrity. If you're asking yourself, well, I think I have integrity. Well, here's some questions that you can ask. Am I accountable for my behavior and the decisions that I make? Do I accept responsibility for my mistakes? Am I setting a good example for my direct reports? Do I always follow through on my commitments and my promises? And then do I act in ways that build trust in my direct reports? Now, I couldn't help but just think back to a episode we did not that long ago. It was episode 39 back in September with Stu Scheller Sr., Crisis of Command, where we talked about, one of the big issues, of course, today is the lack of accountability that we're seeing in senior members, senior leadership. So again, Accountability is, from looking at that list there, reading that list, is a huge part of integrity. Is living up to your commitments, taking and accepting responsibility and accountability for the things that go good or go bad.
Yeah, and I like how you brought that up too with Stu. Is his conviction led him to act on his integrity, and he went
Great
down,
example of it.
and he went down with the ship, and I love that. And that was another example I wanted to use is there's an old film called A Man for All Seasons. And the actor is, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's also in Jaws, the first Jaws. He's the guy get eaten on the boat. Wow, man. Anyway, he plays Thomas More in the movie The Man for All Seasons. And so if you never heard of that, Thomas More was in the government of sorts, Catholic, and representative of the Pope in Britain at the time. And this is the time of Henry VIII. But the salient points are Henry VIII wanted to be divorced from Catherine of Aragon, and he wanted to take the church in England a different way and really to separate from the Catholic Church. And so that obviously was a problem for Thomas More, who was devout Catholic, and he thought that was worth dying for, and he did. And he was asked to accept Henry VIII's divorce of Catherine Aragon. He wouldn't do that. And then he was basically commanded, hey, you're going to go along with this and our separation of, and the problem was England was separating itself, the Church of England, from the papacy, and Henry VIII was saying he was the head of the church, and all that had a problem. Anyway, as he was being executed, before he had his head chopped off, he said, I die the king's good servant and God's first. And, just the idea that I'm just going to go down with it. Integrity is knowing, in that sense, hey, I know what's right and I'm willing to die for it, or I'm willing to lose my job for it, or whatever, or part friends.
Don't you have to have...
That's an extreme example.
Well, don't you have a moral and ethical foundation?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Or
so I mean, like
I'm glad
how?
You said that, yeah.
So you come in. So you've been brought up in this this very progressive family, and a very secular worldview. Is it possible?
Is that why integrity is so rare these days?
Is it possible? For that young man, okay, to have integrity,
well,
and what would it be based on?
Yeah, so I have another way of saying this.
And then could you point at him and say, well, this is what he believes?
Yeah,
I think that would be very difficult.
Absolutely,
because I run into these people all the time. We do all the time where you listen to these people and you think they have a position on something, and sometimes they'll come out and you're like, what? Where did that come from? Because they seem very flighty to me. Am I just imagining that? I mean, you just never know what their position is going to be. It's going to be one thing one day. It's going to be something else the next day because there's nothing really there. There's no foundation that they're drawn from.
Yeah, I'm glad you went there because I would answer the way Soren Kierkegaard answered. Soren Kierkegaard, a Dane, right? We were talking about Denmark earlier.
There you go.
He would be rolling over his grave right now with what they were proposing. But, he lived in the early 1800s. This is an existential philosopher, famous, and a hermit. But anyway, he once wrote in a book called Either Or about what's called his construct, a philosophical construct called 3 stages along life's way. And in that, he postulated there's really 3 types of guys. So you've got an aesthetic man, you've got an ethical man, you got a religious man. And the aesthetic man is a guy that just kind of, his God is his belly. He's just feeding himself, right? And so the next guy is the ethical guy, because he said, hey, that doesn't work, and that you have to make a jump to the next stage of life, because that ethical guy, it just gets old, and you're an infant, and there's got to be something more to life, this, that, and the other. And that guy needs to live with a code, and so he makes the jump to the ethical stage. But that doesn't really work all that well either. And so at the end of it, he describes himself as in the ethical stage, and he said, I was the life of the party, and aphorisms flowed like wine from my mouth. And then I went home and wanted to kill myself. And that's, he was kind of a morbid dude, but then he said, you have to make that jump to the religious stage, which in his mind, what he was saying is you have to be born again. You have to become, a believer. And but anyway, you look at this. Here's how you can answer this question: someone without integrity in the ethical, the aesthetic stage, who merely is just, they're like a brute beast. If they're going to be, let's say, pulled over for speeding, the aesthetic person doesn't want to get pulled over for speeding because they'll lose money, and then they'll have less party money. Okay, so that's why they have some sort of integrity in a way, like there's the blue lights, let's slow down. I don't want to, I want to booze it hard. So and I might want money for other things too. So that doesn't work. And then the ethical guy will slow down and not speed. And I have a heavy foot at times, so I'm not going to throw rocks here. And the ethical guy says, I'm not going to do that because I'll look bad and people will think bad of me. Okay, and you can kind of see where this is going.
Yeah.
And then the religious guy doesn't want to do that and get pulled over for speeding because God's always watching, and that resonates in his conscience and he has integrity, which mirrors his conscience. So the idea is integrity is something that's coming out of your conscience, the part of you that's going to live on, and the conscience has to be informed by the word of God. It has to be, because the conscience is not fully awake until you're born again. And that's the idea. And so without that, without your conscience being trained in godliness, you're just going to say, well, I want more money or I'll look bad. And that's the only reason why you're not going to do certain things. And a lot of people do that. So maybe, today there's not a whole lot of integrity because people just don't want to get busted, because they want to go out and party the next time, or maybe they'll look bad.
There's a couple,
but some guys are like, I don't want to do that because that's wrong.
It's just the wrong thing.
It's the wrong thing.
And I think why integrity comes
anyway,
to play.
that's how Kierkegaard would say it anyway.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things that come to mind when you were talking. One was the movie Lone Survivor. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other instance that I thought about just right off the top of my head was ODA 525 and what took place with them in the early parts of Operation Desert Storm, February 91. That's been a while. But if you recall, both of them had similarities in the fact that they were both small teams, small units, and both of them were things went wrong dealing with a child.
Yeah. Now 525, that's the firefight with a goat boy.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Which, because, the shepherd boy or whatever, gotcha. Okay, the young lad from the nearby village that was out there doing this thing, and they got compromised. And the same thing occurred with the lone survivor, right?
Instead of schwacking
another shepherd boy, if you will. Integrity really comes to play in those instances because there are debates that happen right there with that small element on what to do. And a whole bunch of factors are coming into play, right? Obviously survival, right? But you're talking about, having enough money for the party Friday. I mean, yeah, these are just bigger, okay? It's not having enough money for the party. It's whether or not I'm going home to party at all. So that's why I think integrity, a lot of times when you're talking about being out there at Camp McCall or whatever and asking warriors, hey, what's the most important thing? It's integrity, because integrity matters.
Absolutely.
And
all the time.
Because you have to make decisions sometimes in our profession. And you want to be grounded in something there. I mean, the decision wants to be based in something that's, what's the right thing to do. And it might suck for us, as was the case with both of those situations, right? I mean, there probably would have been other options that may have not been quite as difficult for them.
That's a great point, being grounded. When I look at, I list several examples that integrity can cost you things. It could cost you. It could cost you friends, or those you think you're friends. It could cost you your job. We use an example of costing your life, but the idea is your conscience remains intact. And I look back at the times where I had to make those decisions that were hard, that affected my job, that affected finances and all those things. I sleep well now, knowing, hey, it was done right. I didn't have all the facts, but I just knew, hey, XYZ was wrong. We mentioned that example. Something that's been in the news lately is Bankman-Fried.
That's BF.
Yeah. So Sam Bankman-Fried, defunct FTX. He embezzled, billions. U.S. investors, he embezzled the money, used it for something else, completely, dishonest, fraudulent, money laundering, all those things. But for him, I guess it was just another day at the office.
Right.
No big deal. And there's an example of, hey, what you will do. I would say that guy's in the aesthetic phase. Who cares? I'm just thinking about looking at for number one. So apart from just, having C cups, if you see him in a t-shirt, this guy, and he's probably going to get off. He's probably going to get off scot-free because the people that he's connected with, they don't have integrity either.
Right. Well,
and so it's dirty.
Yeah.
And there's just too much at stake. But yeah, my whole point is just think of how many people are doing that. How many people cheat on stuff.
Well, unfortunately, it's become the norm.
It is. But when we see somebody with integrity, and I've seen it,
that joker freaking shines like a beacon.
Yeah, and you're like, wow.
You're really drawn to them.
Yeah.
Because they are so rare now. I would say back when I was a child, I think it was the opposite was true. It's like, man, this guy's a evil dude. Because most people you could expect to do the right thing and be honest, tell you what they mean. There wasn't a need for, hey, can you sign this contract? If a guy gave you his word, I mean, that was fine. Matter of fact, you might insult him by having him, sign a contract, putting it in writing. These days, you're a fool if you go by somebody's word. Unfortunately, I mean, everything's got to be, written down, and even then, you might be, in a hurt.
I'm glad you said that
because the jury themselves don't have any integrity. I mean, the people that are going to be in judgment of the document are lying scoundrels.
Yeah, but integrity involves thought, word, and deed. If you look at it this way, think of the Ballad of the Green Berets, right? Men who mean just what they say. I mean, just think about that. There's a reason why Barry Sadler penned those lines. Integrity. I mean what I say what I mean. My word's my bond. So part of integrity is, keeping your word. Your word means something. And I know we said this before, and I think it's worth saying again is, if your word means nothing, you mean nothing. I mean, we know people like that. They say, yeah, I'll do this, that, and the other, and then they don't do it. I mean, it's not something like an innocent, I have forgot one thing, but it's like, hey, no, I said, hey, I'm going to do this. It's happening. And you're right. Those are the guys that stand out. And I think today it's fewer and far between. And how sad that is. But hey, it's time to raise the bar. It's time to raise the bar on that. And that starts with the Warriors. That's the beauty of this. So, Warriors create the code, and the Warriors are the ones that say, hey, the standard needs to be maintained.
So we're constantly seeking self-improvement.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you do if you have a concern that you may be lacking in this area? I mean, what do you need to do? You got any suggestions?
I do. So I had certain introspective questions at the end of each chapter. Here I'm just going to freely give these 5 here. Question 1: what does the word integrity mean to you? Because I think it starts at the word level. Definitions matter. Words matter. So I think if you just look at that, it's like, hey, at your level, does that even mean anything to you? In the age of deconstruction, where for many people, truth is relative. Does that even mean anything to you? I think that should be the first question. And the second is, here's what I have. Number 2, have you ever suffered for doing the right thing? Doing something right, and then you suffered for it. You lost something for it. And I think that's, when you look at introspection, you don't want to be morbidly introspective, but I think this is good just to kind of, we don't want to be a basket case here, but it would be good to kind of take stock of our life and go, okay, in this day and age, when so many people are doing the wrong things, and if you do I think there's more opportunities to suffer for doing the right thing this day and age. And so, 3, how well do you really know yourself, your strengths and your weaknesses? I think why that matters for integrity is, we train our weaknesses. We want to make our weaknesses our strengths. And so something I've done is I know hard areas for me. I know areas where they're going to be tough for me, to do the right thing. And that's always, for me, it was alcohol. It was tough for me to do the right thing.
Everybody loves that fire water, buddy.
Yeah, I did so many bad things, became a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of thing. But look at your weaknesses and know, hey, that's also integrity, you have faithfulness to your family, to your wife, to your family, to your job, to God, all those things. Also consider, ask yourself this, do you consider yourself trustworthy? Do people trust you? When you say something, is that going to mean something? And I think you can evaluate that just by how people interact with you. If you never made any, I'm not saying make a lot of promises, but maybe you can make a promise, and then from the feedback, like, really? They don't look at you like, a hog looking at a wristwatch. Is that really going to happen? Or is it like you said, hey, that's a stand-up guy. I know his word's good, and all those things. I think something I learned as a team sergeant was when you hear what your team is saying about you third hand.
Right.
And when you hear that, I'm
glad you brought that up, because I was thinking about peers and where do you think those play in because that's a self-evaluation type process.
A true evaluation is, okay, what are those guys saying about you?
Right.
And, some things I kind of hurt a little bit because you're like, yeah, that's true. Because I had a tendency, early on to be kind of a micromanager, but I need to have somebody reel me in and fix me on that.
Yeah.
But that's good. Yeah, peers are also really awesome. I mean, you get your peer evaluation. I think that is a great tool. And I think the guys that blow that off do to their own detriment.
I agree.
Yeah, it's like, hey, look, I think you should take that with a grain of salt, too. Sometimes people get butthurt and they write something dumb. But generally speaking, it's pretty good.
Yeah, they're pretty valuable.
Yeah. And then, other things. Here's another example is just like you see those inflated resumes, right?
Oh, my
Everybody's
God.
seen this, and you're like, wow, this guy walks on water. He's got an S on his chest, faster than a speeding bullet. The idea is just to be, I don't try to fake the funk on anything I do. So, my resume, it's more like under promise, over deliver is my idea. Now, you do want to put your best foot forward on a resume. You do want to put the stuff in there, but don't.
They want to know what you can do. I mean, obviously, but what your skill sets are. But
I mean, what's that guy's name? George? What's his face? The congressman that's just lied.
George Santos.
Yeah,
but here's the thing.
You got that guy.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I mean, does that guy just fit right in or not? I mean, it's almost like, listen, if you're a congressman, I don't want to hear any congressman talking about George Santos. Man, give me a break. Yeah. number one, you freaking crooks didn't elect him. Okay, if you let his constituents will handle George Santos. Okay, but some of these characters pointing the finger at George Santos, it's almost like, man, please, you brought up something. I couldn't help but think of that classic movie Office Space.
Oh yeah,
where he's talking to the Bobs, and it's you're talking about your resume, and kind of like, hey, what is it that you do here, And they're just they're almost mesmerized by his honesty, right?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's just better off. I mean, I obviously don't want to be that guy, but I mean, he was just straight up honest, and I think the Bobs, it's a comedy, but the Bobs kind of appreciated, I think, just knowing like what the real deal was instead of everybody in there BSing them trying to keep their job, right?
I believe that. I mean, I think in an age of cowardice, virtue signaling, where people they think just by virtue signaling, by whatever, social media and then they're just faking the funk. They're not really those people. They don't really care. And you see that. You do. You see people, they'll plaster all this nonsense on their site or whatever, and they don't really care about those people. But as long as you think they do.
Yeah, that's fine then. Right.
And so,
that's just
it's
out of control, man. Today.
Yeah,
yeah.
So in an age where people are thinking that's integrity, no, that's not integrity. And I like to finish each chapter looking at principles. So here's one with a no and one with to do. So no, you need to know the definition. Integrity keeps honor intact. I mean, if we're warriors, honor is a prize. We want to hold our country in honor. We want to see our vocation is honored, ourselves honored, all that, our unit. So, and integrity is going to help us keep that, in the right place. And then do reminds us, do what is right, even to your own hurt. Even to your own hurt, as far as you lose time, money, maybe even your life. But you don't want to be the guy that, and we know people, they've done wrong in order to keep their jobs. And then they're like these timid souls, and they go through life, and then it's a slippery slope. And the next time, a little bit easier, and they don't really have any substance to they're not a principled man. They don't live by principle. They're not grounded, and they just fall for anything. And they virtue signal their butts off, but they're not really authentic, genuine, able-bodied men.
They're just leaves in the wind.
Yeah, and they're just say and do whatever.
They got their finger up. They're just going whichever way they think they need to go. Yeah.
Just fill in the blank with your politician who is a weather vane.
Right.
They just say whatever they have to say to get elected. And nobody, and I would tell you, the people that we worked with, and there's fewer warriors, but they're still there. And they're the guys who run to the sound of the guns. They don't want to work with somebody like that.
Right.
They want to be work with a man who means just what he says, and would rather die than to make his unit look bad. Hopefully not die, but maybe that extreme to defend the honor and integrity of that unit. And we have a lot of history that backs that up.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think this is definitely a virtue. No one would argue against this, and we cultivate it. Let me just say one last thing here as we wrap this up. I use this example of C.S. Lewis, and he has an essay called "The Inner Ring," and I love this because it's something that I remember as I go through life. I get to new jobs and stuff like that. He called it the lure of the inner ring, and so the inner ring is this place that you desire to be, where you're accepted, whatever group that you want to be in, and then you're going to arrive. And if you can just be in that inner group, then you will be satisfied and happy, and you'll have honor and all that. Everything will be great. And the problem is, the thing is, you never find the inner ring, because once you get into the inner ring, there's always another inner ring. And it's like layers of an onion. You never really get to and at the very end of it, there's nothing there. And the thing with integrity is people that don't have integrity, they'll just compromise in some area in order to get into the inner ring. as long as they get there. But then what they've done is they've compromised who they are, and other people see it, and then you're not really in anyway. So you're just chasing your tail, and you're chasing a mirage of whatever it is. And if you just, I don't know, it sounds kind of weird, but to be authentic and be genuine and have principles and be grounded, and then you get promotions as they come, you get honor as it comes, as it's deserved. But if it's not, then it doesn't. And that's just the way it is.
And it's no big deal.
And it's no big deal.
You have contentment of who you are and what you believe, right?
And because it's an honor to serve. Just to serve is an honor. And to serve by this man to your left and right, that's an honor. All and all on its own. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I think that was an hour well spent on integrity.
Absolutely.
So what's next week?
Next week, we're going to look at loyalty.
Awesome.
And so it's sacred bond. Also, with every age, every culture, and hopefully every generation. But I want you to go ahead. You guys tune in again next Friday when we look at that.
Fantastic. All right. Until then, we hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Pinelander Podcast. If you enjoy our unique content, please consider supporting our sponsors. SOF News, providing special operations news from around the world. It's where Paul and I go to keep abreast of what's going on within the SOF community. Check them out at sof.news. Blacksmith Publishing, been serving the warrior class since 2013. They have great titles written for warriors by warriors. If you're looking for excellent reference material or just want to unwind with a great novel, be sure to check out the bookstore located at blacksmithpublishing.com. And if you're looking for some cool Pinelander apparel, head on over to the general store located at pinelandergeneralstore.com. That's all one word, pinelandergeneralstore.com. Have a great selection of shirts, hats, jackets, sweaters, stickers, patches, artwork, and a whole lot more. Check out the store at pinelandergeneralstore.com. If you're interested in helping develop our country's next generation of warriors, please consider donating to the American Agoge Project. The mission of the project is to foster an environment producing able-bodied citizen warrior men of fine character. And we'll be officially launching the project in 2023 in celebration of Blacksmith Publishing's 10th anniversary. Until our next meeting, stay mentally and tactically smart, physically and spiritually strong, and socially astute. To each other we pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. May God continue to bless Pineland.